Kia ora everybody, and welcome to the session this afternoon. My name is Tony, and I'll be your MC for this workshop. This workshop is Session A, Arts. IndiGenius, I knew I was going to trip up on that one. Young moana creatives and entrepreneurs. So we do have 4 speakers in the session today, and we'll be hearing from multiple groups throughout the session, and we have designated time for question and answers at the end of the session. Just a quick reminder that if the session does bring out any emotions for you, we encourage you to make use of the wellbeing space in the venue, and you can also seek out any of the involved volunteers wearing blue or yellow shirts who can support you. If you are leaving the room at any time throughout the session, please do be mindful that there are other sessions running throughout the venue, so we do need you to be mindful not to disturb them. So please allow me to introduce you to the first presenters for this session, Jordan, Polima and Rob Luisi from Ranui 135, speaking to us about, let me see if I can get this right the second time. No, I'm not going to get it. IndiGenius, I'm just going to say that, young moana creatives and entrepreneurs. Big round of applause for them, please.
Yo, bop, 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 bruh, bruh, bruh. Yeah, party people in the place to be, make some noise. Somebody say hey. Say ho. Say hey, hey, hey. Ho, ho, ho. Now wave your hands in the air. I said wave them like you just don't care. And if you're all down with involved, let me hear you say, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now scream. Awesome. Always wanted to be a rapper. Me, thanks for sticking around, guys. I know it's 3:30. I know some of you might be thinking about sliding out to the motorway, try and beat the traffic and stuff like that. So really appreciate you guys hanging back. And I guess, you know, at the end of the day, we kind of feel like those subs that have been warming the bench for like 70 minutes. No one really cares that you're going on, but we just hope that you enjoy what we have to share with you guys. So I'll just pass it over to my bro.
Hello, talofa. My name is Henry Ho, Wa'ole Samoa. I'm a current student at Henderson High School, and I'm part of the Young Entrepreneur Program of the Ranui 135. I'm just here to help with the presentation.
Pasi mai for my boy, yes. Okay. Oh, I didn't know it was that loud, eh? Lo whakatu kia tautolo osi, ko ingo haku ko Jordan tapa tau Polima, hao motu mo niwe whekai, hao maanga mo hiki ta wake mo awasele. Just try to sound cool, hope you guys bought it. I'm a youth worker, based out in West Auckland at Ranui, with a youth trust called Ranui 135, and I'm currently 28 for a little while. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Nā whakalawhalai atu ke tō tolo osi. Ko Rob Luisi, hau e motuku niwe, niwe nuku tūtaha, mai au e tō maanga ko Mutolau, mo Hakupu. So yeah, I'm Rob Luisi, we're all from Ranui 125, and really just stoked to kind of just have the opportunity to share a little bit about our community and some of the amazing rangatahi out there and kind of the work that they've been getting up to. So I'll just try this new tech. Oh, awesome. Just before we go on, we're out in South Auckland, and I'm not too sure if many of you fellas know BP, or Big Papa, Alan Va'a. He was a massive mentor to me as a young youth worker out in Ōtara, and as we're close to his hood, just want to acknowledge the bro. It's been a big part of my life and a big part of inspiring me to be a youth worker. So much of the things that I do in my practice and that is I can trace back to pretty much the BP. So unfortunately, for those who didn't know him, he passed on last year, and just wanted to take the time, since we're in this hood, few kilometers down the road, from his beloved Ōtara community. Just want to shout out BP. So shout out to the man. Oh, awesome, text mean. So Young Moana Innovation.
Young Moana Innovation. So this is IndiGenius. IndiGenius is by me, because I'm trying to give this justice, a community platform for moana creators and entrepreneurs in West Auckland. Born out of youth development and innovation, it is the recognition of talent and investment and interest and potential. It is undeniably moana to the core, moana made for moana communities in West Auckland. Moana is a descriptor that reaches across the expanse of Te Moana Nui a Kiwa.
Solid. So creative tinkerers and entrepreneurs, that's basically what our community is made up of. And how we got to this point is really organic, and we're kind of, here we go. How we got to this point is really organic. We had a bunch of young people in our community in Ranui who were kind of like a little leadership group, and they do all sorts of cool stuff, like organize the annual Youth Week concerts that we're holding in our community. And what they would do is that they would kind of commission people from within their group to come up with some artwork to work on promos and stuff. So we're really fortunate. We have a young lady. Oh, there it is. We have a young lady in our community who's a really talented artist. And sorry, slow down, bro. Yeah, awesome, sweet. Oh, now we can relax. Now it's all good. I was just pretending to see how long I could take it. But yeah. So they would ask her to that thing does. It's not really a thing. Sorry, just in case you're trying to figure it out. But they would ask her how to. They would ask her to kind of do the artwork for the Youth Week events that we had and do the promo, and their promo would be turned into merch, and there was opportunity for the young people who are working that to kind of just feel tighter as a team, and when they work in the event, be easily identifiable to everyone who was turning up to those concerts and stuff. So you can see here how some of her designs kind of influence some of the artwork that gets put on. And what this kind of did is we started hearing murmurings through the public whenever young people, whenever anyone who was wearing the merch that she designed, people would say like, oh, gee, where's that from? How do you get one of those? Can I buy one? Yeah, can I buy one? So it also happened that she was trying to save up for a car and didn't have a job. So we were like, oh man, like lots of people are asking about your t-shirts and your hoodies and stuff. Do you think maybe we should maybe test the market and see if they're like for real, or if they're just doing those hints to get a free one? So we kind of together, along with your mates in the Realize Ropu, kind of came up with a plan to test the market and see if it was for real. And so, just thanks, bro. So she transferred some more of her designs in that to new merch, and then we kind of did a little public launch just through our social media, and had a 10-day order window for people to pre-buy, because we didn't have any money. We're like, okay, how can we sell stuff with no money? Let's do a pre-order. So she came up with 4 designs, all based on previous Youth Week influences, and within the 10 days, sold about $2,500 worth of merch, which was a click and collect that we held at Henderson Night Market, which was another way to kind of just showcase the public kind of what's coming out of our neighborhood, and that really just sparked more and more interest. And so this was basically kind of like the birth of IndiGenius, because not only was Shiloh, who you'll get to meet a little bit later on, a young person who had these kind of aspirations, but there were also other young people from the neighborhood who were having the same conversations, talking about how do we think differently about our future? How can we turn our passions into income? How can we, just do what we love every day? So this is part of that kind of exercise. That's the origin of it. So,
and with that, in 2019, we encouraged our communities to try and participate in an entrepreneurial experience, assisted with Ngāhere communities who had the platform Kone, if you guys have heard of it. In this pop-up shop, it was in 2019 in Henderson, outside the mall, and this pop-up shop was called Joy for the Hood. And in this pop-up shop, we had 4 vendors take part of it. They're a part of the West Auckland community. They're quite talented people. They sold apparel, as in jumpers, shirts, artwork. They sold beauty face stuff. They lost my mind, eh? And we had another person who didn't manage to get in, but she was around the atmosphere, who was baking on the side. So a lot of opportunities, and just the start for a platform for building up to what IndiGenius is going to become.
And we partnered with Kornei and Ngahere communities, if you're familiar with them, because we kind of weren't ready to go out on our own. It was a bit scary to open up a shop like this. So we supported their initiative through the Western Initiative out in Henderson. And after that experience, our young participants were like, "Oh, yo, we're ready, we're good to go. Let's open up a shop." So we did a community call out, and the community call out managed to bring in quite a lot of people.
We had people ranging from youth to youth adjacent. Our mamas like to support us, and with the experience they bring, so we had a mama join us, or a few mamas join us, and they had that kind of experience of creating merchandise and selling it in their own markets. When we go to our Pacifica stuff, you see our family trying to sell things to the public, but it ends up just being bartering. So, bartering, they just trade goods for goods, and then they came to share their experience with us.
And what I just seen in one of the photos, we just kind of just acknowledging the synergies. So what was happening in West Auckland, we're also aware that all around other parts of the motu, Auckland, all up and down the country, there was a massive movement by, indigenous communities to kind of put their products out there. And part of what the drive around IndiGenius was to provide things in West Auckland that weren't readily available, particularly in mainstream retail spaces. So you could find it at the market, you could find it online, but you couldn't go to like the mall and buy something from Foot Locker and go and get your otai next door. That kind of wasn't available. So in 2021, we launched our first Christmas pop-up, and shout out to West City and West City Mall for providing space for us, allowing us to come through and share space with our vendors. So we had 21 vendors, I think, with 29 participants altogether. So we started, I think, at about 70, and it kind of whittled all the way down to just those who could participate in it, really. And we opened on for like 19 days, 16 days, something like that. And within that 16 days, I think the store made like $37,000 of sales. So within the first 2 days, I think it was like $8,000. We had a soft opening because we didn't really actually know what we were doing. So we wanted to make sure all the FPOS, all of that kind of stuff worked. And I think we had to stop putting stuff on the shelf on that day. We didn't even tell anyone we were open, but word had got around, and like Otai fridge sold out twice. There was certain merch that was limited, and we'd put it on the shelf, and it had already gone, and it was supposed to be kind of like a feature for the opening day. So the community was really like hungry for it. They wanted to see these kind of products. They wanted to see this kind of a store in our neighborhood. So it was real awesome. But then, after the weekend, so we opened on a Wednesday, and their first 5 days was like banging. I think like $8,000 or $10,000, sorry, in their first 5 days. And we were like, oh man, how easy is this? Let's open a shop for real. And then the Monday came, and we didn't even make $1,000 of sales. We were like, oh shucks, I think this is the real life of retail. So yeah, it was good. It was good learning.
Yeah, and this was all through COVID, guys. So we're operating in the traffic light system, and through the COVID, a part of their journey was we were looking at a lot of people who were creating their passion projects and selling stuff online. So those were the kind of people we wanted to give those kind of experiences to sell their stuff and test it within the physical market.
So we'll just run a little bit, just give you a little insight of kind of what the shop is and some of the vendors. Shout out to Carmen Smith, Richard Tonga, Nick Pierce, and Sabrina. They're the crew from West City who, just really accommodating to our community.
Shout out to our little Pacifica vendors that we work with, especially the ones that we work with in schools. We kind of built a network of all their business classes with multiple schools in West Auckland. One of them right here is a little team from Massey High called PQI. They changed their name. You can find them on Instagram. And they made handmade Pacifica laptop cases, laptop bags.
So yeah, just a quick add on. So they tried to get a supplier everywhere in Auckland. They couldn't find a supplier who would kind of provide the low number of products that they wanted that they could afford. So they hustled the school sewing department and managed to make all their own. So I think that's one of the things we just see the kind of hustle that people have. There's a family, like I mentioned, there's an otai brand. I think by the end of the first week, the whole village was making otai.
Shout out to that guy right there, little kitty. And just a small insight. The music's not playing. But this is just some of the vibes that we kind of got with some of our... thank you. Just with some of our young people. They were working the store. I'll let you guys watch it.
Bust it up. So that's just, I think just to acknowledge as well. So everyone who works in the store is a young person from our neighborhood. And yeah, they're literally like all young people. I think 23 is the oldest. We pretty much trust them. The whole thing operates on high trust. Like we can leave them with the shop all day and they hold it down real solid.
Yeah, we had about 7 to 10 young people working in the shops, not all at the same time throughout different markets, and all of them trying to build their confidence within the entrepreneurial space. So as Pacifica people, we knew that we're quite social, and some of our people just wanted to be in that space to kind of build their confidence.
So quick shout out. So this photo here is just an example of some of the kick-ons that's happened from this. So there's Economic Mana Motuhake group of young people who are really, I guess, taking a deeper dive. So the store is kind of the platform where people come in, tinker, have a go. If they sell, sweet. If they don't, sweet. It's all part of youth development and just feeling good about yourself, feeling confident to give things a crack. But this group over here, their vision is to try and make IndiGenius activities kind of like more realistic for our communities or more engaging for our communities. So that's the task that they're working on. And this is basically the source. This young lady here, Shalu, Sangapolu Amatuinai, she's kind of like the source of all of this energy.
I am 21 years of age and I was born and raised in Ranui, West Auckland. I am an artist. I started with drawing and I moved on to digital drawings and then I did some screen printing and then I moved on to fabric and sewing. I just love working with different mediums and just seeing the outcomes of everything. So yeah, I think my earliest memory of making art in the hood would be walking home from school and seeing this guy like passed out on the tree, just lying down, and no, his back was actually up against the tree and his hands was like this. And because I knew who he was, when I saw him I was like, I've seen an image in my, I just instantly got this image in my head, and it was the image of Tupac's Illuminati album cover. So, and because that guy was like passed out on the tree was tall and I could just see it like an image of a cross, like right there, and I just related it back. And because that man was, his nickname was like the Don, I was just like, man, this is lining up. And I just saw him, I continue to see him as like an actual legend. So I think making that art about him really, I don't know, it was like kind of my way of like honoring him. IndiGenius helped me, they encouraged me to keep going with my art stuff, and they gave me a lot of opportunities. And I'd say that I'm like in a pretty good place now, and I'll never forget the way that IndiGenius helped me and just inspired me to just keep making art, because they just showed me, they gave me a lot of tools to help with that, and from that I could do a lot of things, and it all paid off, you know. So yeah, from there also I started selling the Lady Toa blankets, which at the IndiGenius pop-up, that was where they made their first appearance. So I've made a lot of things, like I've made pillowcases, satin pillowcases, I use some embroidery as well, and I've also made satin bonnets for your hair. They're for all hair types, and they're currently being sold at Moana Fresh. Yeah, I also sell a few prints there as well, and I'm just always again, I'm grateful for IndiGenius, for constantly giving me opportunities and encouraging me to keep going with my art stuff, because it's paid off and it will continue to pay off. So thank you.
Thank you, Shiloh.
And I guess, I mean, one of the kick-ons is just the number of people who come through, have a go on the platform, get some confidence out of it, and then kind of head off and do their own thing. So Charlotte's kind of started the momentum of us. She now rolls with the high rollers. The $150 blanket she sold in our shop, she sells in another shop for like $400 or something. There's a market out there for what she has, and they're willing to pay for it. So I think our time's kind of up, so we'll kind of leave it there. Henri, did you want to? Yeah, so thanks, fam. I think we'll kind of leave it there, and if you guys have any questions, we'll maybe try and fill in the gaps.
Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Well done. Awesome kaupapa. Very, very, very cool mahi. Stick around, guys. Don't go too far for the questions and answers at the end. I've just got a small announcement to make. If you own a silver Mazda Demio JCE77, your passenger window is down. It's raining outside, so you might want to wind that up. Alrighty, we have got our second presenter now, and that is Amber Walls from Auckland Council, speaking to us about the unique contribution of youth arts to Mana Taiohi, an evidence-informed by culturally grounded practice approach. So big welcome, please, to Amber Walls.
Thank you. My team are down there. I am going to do that research thing. I'm sorry, everyone. So you need to leave if you hate that research thing. So here we go. Can I just work out that I can? Yep. Okay, I've got it. Okay. So tēnā tātou katoa, kia ora e te whānau, ko Amber Walls, toka ingoa. I was going to do a pepeha, but I'm going to keep it quite light and informal. So I'm originally from the north of England, which is why I've got this kind of funny, drawly accent. And I've lived in Auckland now for 11 years. I came with my partner and my son to join his Kiwi whānau. So this kind of research that I'm sharing, and the reason that I did it in the first place, is kind of part of my journey of trying to shake off all of that Western experience, that Northern experience, and kind of land myself here and try and understand what the work that I'd been doing would look like here. So I'm in the Youth Empowerment team at Auckland Council, and alongside that I've been doing a PhD at the University of Auckland, looking at the unique contribution of the arts to youth mental well-being, and along the way we kind of discovered alignment with Mana Taiohi. So why on earth did I do that? Actually, it's a really good question, because I spent 7 years doing it and moaning about doing a PhD every single morning to these guys. So Yes, I worked for many years in participatory arts, and in that work, I witnessed the most extraordinary contribution to youth well-being, and especially to youth mental health in ways that were really manner-enhancing and meaningful to young people in the context of really challenging lives. And that's a real contrast to young people's experience of the mental health system anywhere in the world, which they often report to be stigmatizing, alienating, culturally unresponsive, and really limiting in what it can do for what they really need to navigate their lives. So we need new approaches. My experience told me that the arts could make a really unique contribution, and we kind of know that, and I'm sure there's loads of people in the room who work in the arts and go, yeah, we know this, but actually it doesn't show up in policy and it doesn't get resourced in practice. It's undervalued, it's poorly researched as well, and so its potential is really unrealised. So the research I did was my hope to kind of better communicate this potential and to look at what that looks like here as well, and also to privilege young people's perspectives. So there's kind of two parts to the research, really. One was like a big look at the mental well-being policy and practice landscape, like what works for youth well-being, what's the current picture, and then the other part was looking at like what can the arts contribute and how can we draw in all of the evidence that people constantly ask us for and tell us is missing. But how can we not just draw in like Western science, but how can we like really understand what young people think and practitioners and people working in that space? So I worked with a case study organisation that I'm calling Project X, and they ran a creative arts project with young people, 13 to 24, who were all in the mental health system, so all in really big distress and really struggling to get on with their lives. Some of them were really struggling to actually get out the door. And we looked together at this question of what does manner-enhancing, culturally responsive, youth-friendly practice look like in Aotearoa. And we produced a program framework grounded in multiple knowledges. And as I'm just going to walk you through the kind of process a little bit. And that is the only slide I promised that she's got no pictures. So my presentation focuses on this part too, this kind of collaborative thinking with Project X about what that looks like here and how is it that the arts produce these really amazing kind of well-being benefits and how do we communicate that? So we did 3 workshops, and we used this kind of theory of change process in all of the workshops. And if anyone is not familiar with theory of change, it's about how we can understand how a project works to achieve change. And mostly people talk about outcomes, like what did it do? But actually this is about really unpacking from everybody's perspectives, what is it that actually makes change happen? And how do you recreate that? Like what are all the little ingredients and how they come together? So this is just some images from the first workshop was with a group of adults, the people who facilitated the project, a bunch of artists, some partner organisations, so a Kaupapa Māori organisation, an education organisation, and a mental health organisation. And then in the second 2 workshops, I worked with 2 separate groups of young people. The first one, young people 17 to 20 who'd experienced Project X. And then the second one, slightly older, 19 to 22, and again, they'd experienced this project. And we did 2 different approaches. So if on the left of the slides there, all the six the sort of little images, we did like painting, collage, we asked questions, we did this theory of change process, and we answered the questions visually, and then we kind of talked through them as well, where people chose to. And then in the second one, we picked up on this metaphor that one of the young people had used in the first workshop, which was of a tree and its ecology, and the idea of the project as a kind of tree growing young people's well-being. So I'm going to unpack that in a little bit more detail. So there's a little bit of, so we did some thematic analysis together, we drew all the sort of ideas together, and we begun to kind of like create these like really gorgeous little images, which I'll also unpack a little bit more in a little while. So then we put all of that information, all the ideas from 3 workshops together into a Project X theory of change, which normally, I don't know if people know theory of changes, but they normally look like diagrams and they look like quite sort of technical. But this was trying to capture those kind of really beautiful ideas and the sort of personalities of young people, and there's all the little objects and images that they'd created. So we put them together. We use this tree ecology. So in the base of the tree there, you've got this idea of all of the critical practices and principles that come together to make the project work. Up the tree, you've got the blossoming of all the things that might happen as a result. And they're framed as possibilities because they're not inevitable at all. And then you've got the gremlins on the outside, all the bad stuff that impacts and makes things work or not. I just wanted to say that bringing this, all of those, so I did this huge literature review alongside that as well, sort of internationally and locally, and brought together loads of evidence, and I worked with a cultural advisor, Boni Tarongapai Tukuwaho, who's amazing, and we looked at different sort of frameworks and how we could bring this together to really ground it in Te Ao Māori foundational principles. And we looked at Mana Taiohi, and actually we realized there's really big alignment, and it's not perfect, and there are things that when we map them across, there's some things that are really special about our project, but we begun to map our project against the principles of Mana Taiohi. Are people familiar with Mana Taiohi? Really? Yeah, so I won't talk through those. Okay, so here we are. We've mapped our theory of change onto Mana Taiohi, and we've begun to make these statements about how the different principles and practices build mātauranga, manaakitanga, whaiwahitanga, whanaunatanga. And I'm going to unpack those in a little while. And it's not perfect, and it's a work in progress, and I'm offering it today as something that if people are really interested in, we want to refine this a little bit further and look at it with other people. So I'm going to unpack some of those key themes now. Right, okay, so this doesn't align entirely with Mana Taiohi, but like one of the most interesting or standout things that young people said was that youth arts, being in the youth arts space creates this breathing space from the stress, constant pressure, and toxic life environments they experience surviving every day. And it's really captured in this idea of a gremlin, shitty adult rules, eating young people's soul joy. So they describe how Project X creates a breathing space, a safe refuge, a micro-community with its own rules, and a critical ingredient at the heart of this breathing space was playful, open-ended, creative processes. So not creating amazing artworks or products, but just playing and self-expression. And this created space for playful experimentation and self-expression with no right and wrong answers, and that was the kind of crucial thing. And it was a real antidote to these kind of really prescriptive, rule-laden environments that young people inhabit. For some research participants, the arts project was the only space in their life where they could breathe in this way, and this freedom created a powerful sense of optimism and possibility. It activated Māori, young people's life force, their passions, joy, and hope. And at the heart of these feelings was freedom to use their imagination. So lots of literature talks about the unique role of arts participation to activate imaginative and possibility thinking, and the role that these play in personal and social transformation. And they're really, really missing from young people's education. So educator John Dewey said many years ago that imagining things otherwise is the first step towards believing that they can be changed. And Maxine Green says, this is the geeky researchy bits, releasing the imagination enables young people to look through their own eyes, to find their own voices, to avoid the formulations devised by others. So imagination is triggered by trying new modes of expression, encountering new people, things, and ideas, experimenting and encountering new possibilities. And these experiences powerfully help us to view our worlds with renewed perspectives, reimagine, and invent visions of what might be and alternatives to challenges we experience. And honestly, the young people said amazing things about just that sort of imaginative sort of process and how it really opened up their minds. They saw themselves as explorers. They described growing wings. They realized they could have fun without getting high, and this triggered feelings of hope, optimism, and set them off on new horizons and pathways. There's like a whole load of literature where people are talking about the arts in ways like in the same sort of way. So, whai wahitanga, so making art together can create participation with power. Participatory art settings lend themselves well to group collaboration, shared decision-making, and non-hierarchical relationships. And these settings create unique, powerful roles for young people as artists, creators, directors, producers, planners, leaders, and non-competitive collaborators. And that's what's really special about the arts, this kind of non-competitive environment. And this enables ako, reciprocal learning, and co-created journeys, and promotes whai wahitanga, active participation and agency. But of course, it's really dependent on responsive, adaptive, youth-centered practices. So this environment of shared power, I hope it's like really obvious where the Mana Taiohi principles are coming in. This environment of shared power validates young people as an authentic expert in their own experience. It affirms and strengthens their mana, and arts participation promotes positive identities, framing young people in strengths-based, non-stigmatizing ways, really in contrast to mental health settings. And my participants spoke about the significance of having empowered identities as contributors and creators and team members, and shaking the stigma of being a mental health patient or something that needs fixing. So Project X was a place where everyone gets to wear the special jacket. So this environment is one of manaakitanga, where everyone's well-being is cared for through foundational Te Ao Māori principles of respect, dignity, and reciprocity, and participants felt deeply cared for. And they talked especially about how arts-based tikanga practices, including waiata and creative games, enabled things like whanaungatanga. So, of course, whanaungatanga is here, no surprises. It's the foundation of positive youth development. And I just want to highlight that making art together creates this really fertile space to grow kinship, belonging, and connection through shared experiences in this really non-competitive, non-institutional environment. And I've got a few slides around Mātauranga. So my research highlighted the unique potential of stories, images, films, music, poetry, etc., to connect us with our emotional, social, and spiritual worlds. This is stuff we know, okay? Activating powerful Mātauranga knowledge, wisdom, learning, and skill in really accessible and inclusive ways. And it's captured here by this lovely idea of navigating the world with the help of a magical creative art brain that one of the young people created. So one of the most powerful tools for growing Mātauranga is self-expression. And for some participants, art's the only way they can explore and express difficult emotions. Storytelling and story making are critical aspects of this, with extraordinary potential to create safe ways to explore and communicate Te Ao Taiohi, young people's worlds, and whakapapa, who we are. 4 minutes. So participants said that being absorbed in making art enabled relaxation, stress relief, and anxiety reduction that lasted for long periods after the project, and also critical reflection that helped them to disrupt unhelpful thought patterns and reframe negative stories about themselves in really powerful ways. And these creative processes build critical tools for navigating life. So Mihaly's, probably murdered his name, flow theory, is often cited as a critical transformational process associated with creativity. I've got a whole description about it. I'm not sure I've got time to read it, but if people are interested, I can come back to that. But it's really fascinating. So participatory arts lend themselves brilliantly to experiential learning, safe experimentation, and risk-taking. And my participants talked about the value of pushing themselves beyond their comfort zone through playful, crazy dancing, or even just by showing up. They talked about performing and practicing new ways of doing things, rehearsing the revolution in a safe space, and then using these skills when they got home. And then this environment of creating, experimenting, reflecting, and resolving challenges builds problem-solving capacities and skills to adapt, manage change, and navigate life. Just wanted to mention Hononga, so obviously all of these experiences provide really fertile ground to build Hononga connections in the wider world. So, right, okay, so coming back to the earlier slide, the shitty adult rules, eating all the soul joy, there's like loads of literature that talks in a similar way about youth arts as a space apart from the everyday. And there's some really fascinating theories for all of us geeks about why such a space is transformational. An important theory is anthropologist Victor Turner's concept of liminality. So liminality is mostly associated with ritualized practices such as rites of passage. It's characterized by physical separation into a group space where participants are detached from social status, norms, practices, and relationships usually expected of them. Through ritualized practices, the group forms new rules, relationships, ideas, and transformation and change can occur. And these new ways of thinking and doing can then be reincorporated back into their world, usually representing an enhanced status. It's really fascinating. And it's really aligned with descriptions of what happens in youth development generally, but in youth arts especially. I can't possibly do it justice, but yeah, come and geek out with me later about that. So this is my final slide. And it highlights youth arts as a powerful space for resistance, social action, and public messaging. So all of that stuff I've kind of just talked about is about personal resistance, really. And this is about kind of more public social resistance. And this happened in my research project. So these fabulous young people in these two groups who'd been so shy, through this kind of process of thinking about mental health services, their place in them, what they might look like, suddenly became kind of really awake to their situations and formed this campaign group for youth-friendly mental health approaches and launched a youth-led hub. And that's a really kind of familiar story in youth spaces. And again, there's heaps of literature about that I just can't do justice to now, but like often associated with Freire and Boal and social justice art. So just to kind of bring it to a conclusion, I just wanted to reflect on how important it is to highlight how important it is young people have spaces to be able to do this, to reflect, to resist, to challenge the world they live in, to think about it, to question it, and also note the potential of youth arts to influence minds and hearts and mobilize systems change through these really powerful kind of public platforms and art forms. And that's really crucial and critical because currently our dominant approach in the mental health system is to fix young people and ignore this really toxic world that they live in. And actually we need to be focusing our attention on fixing the toxic life environment. So I'm offering the arts as a way that we can address some of that. So drawing the presentation to a close, I've seen the time. I'd just like to note that none of the outcomes I've described are inevitable or simple. They depend on really complex dynamics, highly skilled practitioners, well-resourced projects, reflective, adaptive, and youth-centric processes, and mātauranga, and they depend on learning from and with young people and from each other. So on that note, I invite your feedback, and if you're interested in being part of next steps to kind of further this work, to refine it, then come and talk to me. I'd love to talk to you. Thank you. Tēnā koutou I te whakaronga mai. Thank you for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amber Walls. Our next presenter is Mackenzie Henderson-Wraight from Dance and Arts Therapy New Zealand, speaking to us about creative arts therapies for Aotearoa youth.
Hello. Yes, cool. Kia ora koutou katoa. Thank you so very much for having me. I think there was more perfect segue into my presentation. So thank you to my previous 3 speakers. So we're all youth workers here, and it feels like there's an increasing amount of youth work to be done with, increasing numbers of young people presenting with disabilities and neurodiversity, experiencing trauma in their lifetime, and with COVID and natural disasters bringing about more and more behavioural disruptions. It feels like there's a lot of work to be done and not a lot of people to do it. But I have some good news. There is an entire profession waiting in the wings to be able to do some of this work with you. So I'm here to tell you about the creative arts therapies and how we can use them with the youth of Aotearoa. My name is Mackenzie. I work with Dance and Arts Therapy New Zealand, and I am a creative arts therapist and a dance movement therapist. And that silences the response I normally get when I tell people what my profession is. So let me tell you, what does that title mean? So as a dance movement therapist, I undertook a master's degree at the University of Auckland, and I did 750 placement hours on site learning about how this therapy works, and I did at least, I promise I did 81, leading hours where I was the therapist on site, leading the session in charge. After I completed my degree, I registered with Ākuhata, the Australian, New Zealand and Asian Creative Arts Therapies Association, and the Dance Therapy Association of Australasia, the DTAA. This means that if you come across someone who calls himself a creative arts therapist in Aotearoa, they need to have similar qualifications. It's really important to me that you know that I'm not a teacher. I've been introduced as the dance teacher many a time, and I have no qualifications in teaching. You don't want me teaching you how to dance. Additionally, I'm not a physiotherapist. People hear movement therapist and think physio, that I'm going to help them recover after an injury. And I can't, and I won't. So if that's what I'm not, what actually am I? I'm a creative arts therapist. We are more closely aligned with talk therapy. When you come to a psychologist and you sit down on their couch and you talk about your problems, that's what we do, but through the creative arts instead. So I've stolen this definition from the Dance Therapy Association of Australasia, and they define the creative arts therapies as the relational and therapeutic use of the creative arts to further the physical, emotional, cognitive, social, and cultural functioning of a person. Cool definition, but what does it mean? The relational use of the creative arts means that I use the creative arts as a way of building a therapeutic relationship. Studies have shown that about 80% of therapeutic change, 80%, comes about from the therapeutic relationship, not from the actual type of therapy that happens, but the relationship itself. So by building my relationship with someone, by making art with them, or dancing with them, or observing them while they move, we can bring about therapeutic change in the end. The therapeutic use of the creative arts means that we are using the creative arts to address their particular goals. So we have those 5 focus areas: physical, emotional, cognitive, social, and cultural. And so any particular client can present with any particular goals in any of those areas, and we use the creative arts to make a plan to achieve those goals for that individual person. Now, when I say when I say creative arts, I want you to think of it as an umbrella term. So on that beautiful picture from a nice warm beach where I'd really like to be, think of that orange umbrella with creative arts therapies on top. Sitting underneath in those nice blue lounges is you're going to have an art therapist, someone who uses the visual arts, painting, drawing, sculpting, collage, to bring about change. Next to them, you're going to have a dance therapist who understands that the body and mind are connected, and that by changing one, you change the other. Sitting next to them, you're going to have a music therapist who uses music instruments, expression, so that people can share what's going on in a way that words don't, that words can't. And then next to them, you're going to have a drama therapist who is like elbows deep in a puppet and allows people to reenact their lives with new decisions, new behaviors, new characters. So when you hear creative arts therapies, anyone who is using the creative arts to bring about therapeutic change and is registered to do so is doing the creative arts therapies. So now you know who a creative arts therapist is, kia ora, what the creative arts therapies are, what actually happens in a session. So other than the usual, like, kia ora, come on in, sit down, make yourself at home, what happens is the creative process. Naturally, with a creative endeavour, there is an end product. There is a painting that's painted, a song that's sung, a dance that's danced, a play that's acted, but we don't really care about the end product. It could be the most hideous thing in the world, and we don't care. What we care about is the process of getting to that end product. You know, it's the journey, not the destination. So while someone is making art with me, or while they are dancing and moving with me, they are uncovering meaning, or they're creating brand new meaning. So if I'm with a client and I've got a canvas up in front of us and I've got like the rainbow of paints, and they pick the red paint and they cover that canvas with red paint. Well, why red? What does that mean to them? Is it their favorite color? Is it their least favorite color? Does it remind them of the rose that their partner gave them? Are they in a really safe, loving relationship with their partner, or have they had the most nuclear breakup known on earth? Why did they choose that color, and what does it mean? Additionally, could we try something new? Could they take the yellow, a brand new experience for them, and combine it with the red and make orange? What does changing red to orange mean? We can find out together. And also, we can try and practice new things. So, in my dance therapy space, we believe that the mind and body are connected. By changing one, we change the other. If someone's really stuck in their movement pattern and they're like, side to side is my jam, this is how I dance at parties, I'm cool right here. And I'm like, sweet, let's stay here. Can we come forward and back? Can we go side to side? And then can we come front and back? In a safe relationship with me, a safe adult, can people try something new? If they're colouring in their colouring book and then all of a sudden they go outside the lines, can they tolerate the fact that they made a mistake and that they made their painting ugly, hideous, awful? Can they tolerate that? Or do they rip it up and throw it in the bin and never speak about it again? And if they do that, can they sit with the distress for 5 seconds, look at that awful thing before they throw it out? And then next time, can we do it for 10 seconds? And then 15. And eventually, maybe by trying that new thing and practicing that skill, we could make it all the way to the full therapeutic hour. And underneath all of those things are the therapist's unique skills. So while I'm going side to side with my client, I'm watching the quality of their movement. Is it this like bouncy thing because they're 6 years old and they're really excited to be dancing? Or is it like this 18-year-old, I don't want to be here, but I have to be here, kind of really reluctant side to side? I'm watching the quality of their movement and then matching it with them. And so that's just one skill that comes underneath all of these things. So now you know who a creative arts therapist is, what the creative arts therapies are, what happens in a session, how do we actually use it with and for the youth of Aotearoa? First of all, we're just tapping into something that young people already have. We have already heard this afternoon that young people love being creative. You know, if you've seen a young child engaging in imaginative play, if you've seen like a teenager singing into their hairbrush in front of the mirror, or you've heard a young adult creating a rap about what's going on in their life, you know that young people love being creative. We're all probably here because we love being creative. So we are really just using something that young people already have access to and putting it within a therapeutic system where they're going to use something they love to enhance their own well-being. If we compare the creative arts therapies to more traditional therapies like talk therapy, there is not so much reliance on verbal language. So this is really wonderful for children who may not yet have developed language skills, or people who feel threatened by sharing what's going on in their life. Admitting and sharing your problems verbally can be really tough, no matter your age, but especially if you're young and you don't have the adult words to be able to say what's going on. But what you can do is you can draw a picture, or you can find a song, or you can act something out or make a little dance about what is going on in your life. What can you share in a really safe, comfortable way that's not quite so threatening? For our young people who maybe are neurodiverse or on the spectrum or have a sensory need, being able to express themselves non-verbally and explore the sensory aspects are really wonderful, accessible ways to receive therapy. So, art making can be inherently non-verbal. Moving our bodies together doesn't require verbal language at all. Additionally, the sensory aspects, if you've ever seen, someone like dip their finger into paint and like scribble it all over a canvas, or get like a silk scarf and like drape that over their bodies, how beautiful that feels. For people who engage in self-stimulatory behavior, stimming, they're doing this behavior that regulates their nervous system. And this is a space where they can regulate their nervous system with someone else. And stimming behavior is not just invited, but encouraged. Finally, for our young people who've experienced trauma, in the organisation I work for, Dance and Arts Therapy New Zealand, we do a lot of work with young people who have experienced and survived sexual violence. For these people, someone has taken their bodily agency away from them. Someone has used their body in a way that they didn't consent to. Something like dance movement therapy, which is bodily based, allows these young people to come back into contact with their bodies safely. The body is the one thing that we carry with us throughout our entire life. It will never leave us. So it's really important that our young people find comfort, safety, security, and a sense of being at home within their bodies. So if, with the guidance of a safe therapist, a safe adult who is trained in these techniques, can bring them back into contact with their body, we're setting that young person up for the rest of their life. So before I leave you, I would like to give you a koha. And if any of this is of interest to you, please come and find me on the floor of the silent disco, or you can follow my organisation, and I've always wanted to use a laser pointer. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We would love to collaborate with you or work with you in some form. So my koha, I invite you, if you've been taking notes, to free up your hands, and I'm going to free up my hands myself by coming to the lectern. Okay. So this is something that you can use for your personal practice, or something that you can use with the young people that you work with. The purpose of this little experiential is to bring about the connection between our minds and our bodies, and allow a bodily experience to influence the emotions that we feel. So once your hands are empty, we are going to go, not just yet, but we're going to go 3, 2, 1, clap, and rub our hands together. After we've rubbed our hands together, I'm going to invite you to think of a positive memory associated with your hands. It could be making art. It could be baking bread. It could be picking a flower. It could be holding the hand of a loved one. Whatever positive memory you think of, let it flood your mind and sit with the emotions that it brings about for you. So, with your free hands, 3, 2, 1, clap, and rub the hands. Feel the warmth of the friction, feel the warmth, getting warmer, getting warmer. And then when you're ready, you can stop and just gaze at your hands. Thinking of that positive memory, letting it flood your mind. Thinking all those good thoughts. And with that good feeling, I'm going to leave you. Ngā mihi nui, thank you very much. I think it's time for some questions.
Thank you very much. Yes, it is time for some questions. So I'm going to invite our speakers to come back up onto the stage. If you have any questions for our speakers, please raise your hand and I will come around with a microphone. Are there any questions for our speakers? Yep.
Kia ora, this is for Mackenzie. Ai, ko koe tērā. When you engage with your clients, how do you create goals? What's that process there?
When we work with young people, it's a collaborative approach. So if it's the young person like presenting on their own, then we're client-led. If someone comes up with their own goals, if they know what they want to achieve, that is wonderful, we'll work with them together. If a young person is presenting within like their whānau or their community or within a kura, we will take multiple people's input. So we've worked with school guidance counsellors, the teacher and the young person themselves to kind of come up with a group set of goals as well. For our young people who maybe have a developmental delay, intellectual disability, where it's more about just like social connection and finding something that they enjoy. We kind of have a standard set of what would we expect a young person of their age to be able to do and want to do, and then we work towards that standard set. So a whole lot of options.
Thank you. And when it's in the school setting, do you report to their individual education plans as well with that?
Yes, so if a teacher or a principal or a guidance counsellor comes forward with their independent learning plan, I believe that's the correct terminology, or something to achieve within their local curriculum, within the school's curriculum, then we absolutely can take that into account and work towards achieving that.
Ngā mihi.
Hello.
Kia ora. I just want to say, I got a lot out of every person's presentation, but my main question is to yourself and IndiGenius. You have lots of people interested in arts or entrepreneurship, but to take that leap and do it, what have you found works? Because these are things we'd like to start in our community. I'm from a small town, Āotearoa, but it's that connection that has been quite difficult.
Thank you for the question. I'll try my best to answer it. So I guess in terms of that, I guess we try to build as much rapport as we can with our community. Coming from a youth practitioner background, we're traditionally grassroots, and we're within the community running activities, activations, mentoring and stuff. So a lot of our stuff is kind of a response to the energy around whatever they want to do. And a lot of it, with new people, it's trust. So we came across this, I think it was a lot of learning for myself in terms of networking or communicating with local business people. I don't know if I should say this, but I was messaging like local vendors off my personal page, and then, you know, some people might like, hey, who's this guy? You know, the promises of we'll sell your merch, we'll sell your apparel, and you guys get to keep all the profit. It's like, it sounds too good. It sounds too good to be true. So a lot of learnings on my side where I could have communicated better, and I guess we're just thankful for the people who took that leap of trust to journey with us into their new space. So, yeah.
Oh, just quickly, so I think we're really fortunate that we're able to offer seeding grants as well. So from a practical level, there's there's no kind of, or we kind of mitigate the risk that people would take to take the leap. Sorry, and then apart from that, it's really just trying to encourage people to leverage the community. So we're not doing it on our own, and the whole point of having the platform is that we all kind of share our community with each other. And so someone who comes to buy someone's product walks past someone else's, and that's pretty much been the experiences. Just sharing space helps to kind of shrink either the risk or shrink the kind of the gravity of taking the leap. So.
What you were just saying, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, as well, Jordan was saying, about sort of trust and relationship building. It's you, wasn't it? And I was thinking about that slide, the slide early on with the house, the derelict house, and the light sort of photograph. So that was a project on a housing estate in the north of England many years ago, with a group of young people, and we were. I was in an arts team, and the community development team brought us in because they were trying to redevelop this estate, and they were trying to engage the young people in what that would look like. Honestly, it took us a year to get them down from the roofs. They were on the top of the roofs. So we just kind of tried to understand, built some relationship, but tried to understand what they might be interested in, but were around doing things, being present, probably being in their face, but doing stuff. And then occasionally they go, that looks interesting, I'll come and do a bit of that. It was just about being there. But I think one of the things about the arts is that it's very, it's like an island. Quite often people do the arts, and it's also about the arts, and they forget that actually there's a whole bunch of stuff you've got to do around that to engage people in it. So you need to be in it as a kind of youth development practitioner, and the arts is one thing, is what I would say. Yeah. So in that photograph, I just want to say what we did was really cool. We did parkour. They wanted to be up on the buildings. They were hanging out on these derelict buildings. So we brought this parkour, do you know parkour, free running, dance troupe in. And that light thing was the photographer. They did photography and stoplight photography and free running around the building. And honestly, I did not get permission from council to pass health and safety on that one, but it worked. Oh, I did nearly swear then.
Same. I think that's all the time we've got for questions in this session, but if you do have questions that you would like to ask our speakers, then please do approach them. I'm sure they'll be more than willing to answer your questions. And I'd just really like to thank you all for coming into the session today and supporting our speakers. And I would just like to thank our incredible speakers for leading us for this breakout session and for sharing their knowledge and their experience with us. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming along today.